Shalom Aleichem. Welcome to everyone. I want to this week's shiur is titled "A Rabbi's Disappearing Act." It is going to be part one. We're going to set the stage. We're going to ask a question. We're going to ask a very, very important question, and hopefully next week we will be back to answer this mystery, and it really is a mystery. We are going to learn a couple of mishnayos really in Maseches Avos, and that is we're going to highlight. We're going to try to understand one person. We're going to focus on one person and take it from there. And really, this person is mysterious. Really, this person is hidden later on throughout really all of rabbinic literature. So we see that the Mishnah says in the second perek of Perkei Avos, Chamisha Talmidim Hayu LeRabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. There were five, I guess not. He didn't only have five students, but these were the five primary Talmidim, the five primary students of the great Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Ve'eluhen, and then the Gemara just lists them. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanis. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanis is the famous Rabbi Eliezer. Many times during in Shas, he's called Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol. Here is Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanis. Fine, that's number one. Then Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya. Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya was Rabbi Yeshua. Okay, whenever the Gemara of the Mishnah refers to Rabbi Yeshua, it is Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya. Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya he was a Levi. He actually was in the choir as one of the singers that sang the shiur every single morning and every single afternoon when the korban was burnt, and he was the Levim either guarded or they sang, and he was one of the singers. The third is the Rabbi Yossi Yaakov, and Rabbi Yossi Yaakov we don't know very much about. The Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel, and also Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel, we don't know much about. That's Rabbi Yossi Yaakov is 3. Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel is 4. And then the Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch and Elazar ben Aruch. Okay, so we have those 4. Now, the Mishnah does not only list who these 5 primary Talmidim of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai are, who hayamona shivchan. He praises them. He counts. He tells of their shevach, of their praise. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanis, bor sid she'eno me'abed tipa. He was like a cistern, a cemented cistern, right? So the cistern catches all the water, and then on the top of it, on the roof of it, it's covered with a cement topping. What does that basically mean? She'eno me'abed tipa. It doesn't lose any drops. He basically retained everything. Everything that Rabbi Eliezer ever learned, he retained. He had an unbelievable memory, and he didn't ever forget anything. He was borsid she'eno ma'abed tipa. Sometimes you have people like this. They just remember. Their recall is unimaginable, and that was Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanis. Fine, that was number one. Rabbi Yoshua is, we say, what's his shevach? What's his praise? Ashrei Yolduso, right? Praise should be the one who gave birth to him, and this is about his mother. His mother really raised. Rabbi Yeshua was raised by his mother in Shas a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. It speaks about the education of his mother. His mother used to put him the Mishnah in Sukkah tells us that his mother used to put him in a sukkah when he was an infant. When he was an infant, she would leave him in the sukkah. She would bring him to the base medrash sometimes, and Asher Uduso probably seems, and according to the Rishonim, it seems mostly with respect to his midos, right? Because they would see, someone would see him and they'd say, imagine, fortunate as the mother gave birth to this kid who was such a tremendous, has sparkling midos. Rabbi Yossi Chassid, Rabbi Yossi HaKohen was a Chassid. He was a pious individual, and the Mefarshim say that he was lifnim mishura, said that he always went above and beyond. Probably in terms of Ben Adam Lechavero as well as Ben Adam Lemakom. Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel Yarei Chet. He was he feared sin, and therefore he took a lot of chumras, he took a lot of stringencies upon himself, so he would never ever sin. Rav Soloveitchik explains that the difference between a Yarei Shamayim, very often we describe a person as he's really a Shamayim, I want to bring Yarei Shamayim to the world, and this person is a Yarei Shamayim. What is Yarei Chet? In Birkas HaChodesh, we're going to say the Birkas HaChodesh this Shabbos, as we are getting ready for Kislev. We're nearing the end of Cheshvan, and we'll usher in Kislev. I think that this coming week from, I'm filming this on Tuesday, so a week from today, Tuesday, will be Rosh Chodesh Kislev. So this Shabbos we're going to want this month to be a month of Yiras Shamayim v'Yiras Chet. What's Yiras Shamayim? What's Yiras Chet? So Yiras Shamayim is God consciousness. I'm always thinking about God. I always have God on my mind. Yiras Chet is the understanding what Chet does to a person or does for a person. When I speak Lashon Hara, how does it affect me? When I turn a light on the Shabbos, how does it affect me? When I don't go to davening, I don't wear tzitzis, I don't light Shabbos candles, whatever it is, whenever I do an Aveira, how does that affect my neshama? So here, Rabbi Shimon ben Nisano is described as a Yarei Chet. There's a story about Rav Soloveitchik, I think, that he accidentally turned off. He rubbed up against the light once on a Shabbos, and only minutes later he realized, whoa, the lights went off or the lights went on, either whatever the story is, and he realized that it was he who turned the lights on, who broke Shabbos. All of a sudden he collapsed, and he fainted. That's a person who understands Yarei Chet, right? He did it accidentally. It was shogeg. Right? Is he going to be held liable like he did it on purpose? Chas v'sholom. He wasn't held liable. He didn't do it on purpose. Right? But when you understand, irrespective of that, he broke Shabbos. So he understands how that tarnishes your neshama to a certain extent, how it affects your soul in a negative way. That is that hurt him. And lastly, Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch, he was a Mayan HaMisgaber. He was a spring that got stronger and stronger and stronger. It was a spring that continuously and that continued to sprout and to spring forth and to do great things. So what's interesting in our learning is that, what's the order? What's the order? Is Rabbi Elazar the greatest? Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus the greatest? Rabbi Elazar the greatest? Who are these people? Are some of the shevach, or some of the praises, are some of them greater than others? And we're gonna skip that last three lines in the first source, and we're gonna go to a Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer is a Tanaic work, a work from the Mishnah, the times of the Mishnah, that tells other stories about what was going on in the lives of the Tanaim. So this is a story about Rabbi Eliezer, not Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch, Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. V'nasan eina b'Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he took a liking, let's say, to Rabbi Eliezer. Amar lanu davar echad mina Torah. So he tells his Talmud, tell me something, teach me something, say a Dvar Torah, say a Vart, say something. Amar lo, Rabbi Eliezer answers his Rebbe, Emshel mashal mahadavar domer. Let me tell you a mashal. Let me give you a parable. You're asking me to say a Dvar Torah, right? It says, Labor hazeh she'eno yachal lahotzi mayim yoter mimasha hayamotzi. He said, no, you know what I am? I'm a bore, I'm a cistern, I'm a hole, I'm a hole in the ground. She'eno yachal lahotzi mayim, that I'm not able to give off water, to give out water, to produce water. Yoter, more water, mimasha yamotzi, that which I have. I mean, I have a finite amount of water in this cistern. I can't give you more, right? So what's he saying? Kach ani, so too am I, Rabbi Eliezer is saying to his Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Eini yachol lomar divrei Torah. I'm not able to say divrei Torah. Yoter mimash kibalti mimeka. You're my Rabbi. I don't know anything. Everything I know is because of you, is due to you. So therefore, what am I going to teach you? I'm just going to regurgitate information and Torah knowledge that you taught to me. End of the third line. Amar lo. He says, Em shaluch. So now Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is saying, no, what you're talking about. Em lo. Em shaluch mashal ma'adavar domer. Let me give you a mashal to that which we're discussing. He says, L'ma'ayan, to a spring. L'mayan zeshut novei umotzi mayim. That really, you're like a spring that's able to gather, but also to be able to create and to give off even more, to give off more than you've actually collected. You're able to give out more water than what you have accumulated. Kach ata. So too Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says to his Talmud. So too you are yachol lomar divrei Torah. You're able to teach divrei Torah and say divrei Torah. Yoter mima shekiblu misinai. You're able to give off more than that which was taught at Sinai, which I think means that you're able to give off more than what you were strictly taught from Sinai, from me. Really, I am your Rebbe. So what's interesting here in this is that here, one-on-one, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is telling Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer, remember, he's the one who's mentioned first in the Mishnah. He's telling him that you are what? You are like a Mayan HaMizgaber. You're like this spring that gets stronger and stronger. Yet, in the Mishnah, for perpetuity, how is he Mona Shivchan? What does he say about Rabbi Eliezer? He only describes Rabbi Eliezer as this bor sid she'eno me'abed tipa. He's only this cistern, right? That has water and doesn't forget anything. Great. That wonderful compliment, that wonderful praise of a Mayan HaMiskaber that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says to Rabbi Eliezer in the Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer is not given to him in the Mishnah. It's given to the last person on the list, who is Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch. So we have this weird case where we have a second source that tells us that Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenes is kind of both this cistern, right? And he's also a Mayan HaMizgaber. But in the Mishnah, when he has to describe only one person as the Mayan HaMitgaber, as this spring that's getting stronger and stronger and producing more and more, he gives that to Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch. He doesn't give it to Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenes. Okay, I'm a very competitive person. I like to be the best. I like to be great. I like to succeed. But I also like to make lists of and say, oh, who's the best and who's the most religious person? My mom says that when I was younger, I used to say, is this person more religious than this person? Is that person more, or who's, I can make lists of everything. Who's the best basketball player, the best this, the best whatever it is, right? Best kid in the class, all these things. So the Mishnah kind of does this. Okay, there's a little machlokas about who's the best of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's students. Now we're going to go back to the first source, the third paragraph in the first source. Who haya omer, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai would say, if you had a scale and you had on one side all of the Chachamei Yisrael, all of the Chachamim, all of the Rabbanim, all of the greats on one side of the scale, the Eliezer ben Horkenes, Bekaf Shniya, and you had Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenes on the other side. So Machriyat Kulan. Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenes would outweigh all the Chachamim. So all the Chachamim in this hand, on this hand, and then Rabbi Eliezer, he would still outweigh all of the Chachamim. But then the Mishnah says, Abba Shaul, no, we have someone else. We have Abba Shaul, who's Omer. Mishmo, he says Mishmo in his name. So you have Abba Shaul, who is now saying in the name of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. So we have a machlokas. What did Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai say? Did he feel that it's Eliezer ben Horkenes who's his greatest Talmud, who's, let's say, the greatest Talmud ever, right? Or as we see, is it Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch? Abba Shaul, third words under it. Abba Shaul Omer Mishmo, he says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Im Yehu Kol Chachmei Yisrael B'Kaf Maznayim. Same thing. You have scales, right? You have all the Chachamim on one side. Now it's Rabbi Elazar ben Horkenes. Afi Mahem, Rabbi Elazar B'Kaf Shniya, Machriya et Kulam. He says, no. If the Chacham Yisrael even had Rabbi Elazar ben Horkenes, right? Still, Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch would outweigh them all, and he would win, and he's so much greater. So we have a machlokas. Who's the greatest? Is it Rabbi Elazar ben Horkenes, or is it Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch? Now, why do we care about this machlokas? So I think why we don't really care about this machlokas if Rabbi Elazar ben Horkenes is the greatest, because we see Rabbi Elazar ben Horkenes hundreds of times in rabbinic literature, hundreds of times in the Mishnah, hundreds of times he's quoted in the Gemara. We also, Rabbi Yeshua, just to mention, Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya, the Rabbi Yeshua, he's also mentioned hundreds of times in Mishnah and hundreds of times in the Gemara. Yet Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch, who according to Abba Shaul, saying in the name of Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai, and even in the second paragraph, that originally he has to describe one person as a Ma'yan HaMitgaber. He says it's Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch. Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch is mentioned 2 or 3 times in Mishnah, and I think twice in all of Shas, and again another handful of times in all of rabbinic literature, in all of the Chazals, Medrash, anything like that. Why is it if this unbelievable man, Elazar ben Aruch, is such a master, if he's so much greater than even Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, who are quoted hundreds of times, where is he? Why is he not quoted? Where is he in the rest of these Mishnayos? If you would just learn this Mishnah, you would be going through Shas. I got to see what Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch says here. I got to see what Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch says there, and it's not there. It's just not here in our canon, in our tradition. Let's strengthen the question with three more sources. Here we go. It's the next Mishnah in Avos. Amar lehem. He said to them, what's the correct way? What's the way in life? If you have one guiding principle in life, what should that guiding principle be? We know Hillel, Rabbi Akiva, Zeklal Gadol, Shviva Haftel Re'echa Kamucha. So let's look at this Mishnah. Let's see what he says. Rabbi Eliezer, he's going to go through all of the Talmidim and see what they say. End of the first line of that last source, of the source in Mishnah Tet. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Ayin Tov. You have to have a good eye. It's a good eye, not just at the plate. You have to have a good eye. No, whatever that means, you have to see things in a positive light. You have to always be optimistic and hopeful and ideals, whatever exactly that means. Rabbi, that's not why we're learning this Mishnah. Rabbi Yeshua Omer Chavra Tov. You have to be a Chavra Tov. You have to be a good friend. You have to be a confidant. You have to be a good friend. You have to be there for people in need. Rabbi Yossi Omer Shachin Tov. You have to be a good neighbor. You have to be a community member, and you have to be a good neighbor. You have to help people who live in your shacheh, in your shchuna, in your neighborhood. Rabbi Shimon Omer, right now the Rabbi Shimon here is the Rabbi Shimon ben Netano. We're going through the five Talmidim. Omer Haroas Hanolad. You have to have a little bit of vision. You have to be a person who Haroas Hanolad. You have to see the birth. You have to see ultimately how this action or this decision is ultimately going to play out, and that, I guess, long distance view or long term view is something that's very, very crucial to a person's success, in life. So then he says, third line, Rabbi Elazar Omer Leiv Tov. You have to have a good heart. Leiv Tov. You have to have a good heart. Amar Lehem Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says to his Talmidim, Roa Ani, I see, meaning it seems to me, at Divrei Elazar ben Aruch, right? That Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch's words, he's correct. Really, his way of life. The Leiv Tov is really the defining character. That's the most important thing. And he says, not only is the most, Shebechlal Devarav Divrechem, right? That really all the Ayin Tov and the Shachin Tov and the Chaver Tov, they really all are subsumed under the heading or under the idea of having a Leiv Tov. Then he goes. Then basically the rest of the mission is the opposite. What's the worst thing? What's the midah that a person sheyit rachek mimena? The person has to distance themselves from. So Rabbi Eliezer says an ayin ra, not a good eye, but a bad eye. Yeshua says a chaver ra, bad. Rabbi Yossi Omer shachin ra, bad neighbor. Rabbi Shimon Omer halove ve'eno mishalim echad halove mina adam. Okay, then he says no. If you lend, I borrow, but I don't pay my dues. And then what is at the end? He quotes Rabbi Elazar, and what does he say? A levra, a bad heart. Amar lehem ro aniyat. And once again, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says no. He's right. He's like the worst thing you could have is a levra. So in this little competition, right? This question that was asked of them. We see that Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch and how to live life and how to live, a special life, a unique life, a meaningful life. So he wins that battle. Let's look on the second page. So we have an amazing story that's told in the Gemara in Chagiga. So the Gemara in Chagiga tells us a story. There are certain things the Mishnah lists as things that a person shouldn't, I'm going to say it in a negative way, waste their time with. Right? There are things that are too delicate and too difficult and too hard to really comprehend and understand in the world that a person shouldn't waste their time with. They shouldn't learn, and they definitely shouldn't teach it. There are things that might be too sensitive that we don't necessarily have to be teaching to the masses. So the Gemara now tells the story. Tana Rabbanon, this is the Gemara in Chagiga, and Yudalid Amud Beis. Tana Rabbanon, Maisa, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. We have a story, an incident with respect to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Shayu Rochev al HaChamor. He was once riding on a donkey. V'aya Mahalich B'derech. He was going on the road. Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch mechamer acharav, and his Talmud, Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch, who were wondering about him. We're going to try to understand who he was and why he was kind of cut out from the Jewish Torah world, or why he doesn't have this powerful punch, this impact. So what do we know in this story? That they're walking together. Amar lo, Rabbi Elazar says to his Rabbi, Shnali perik echad b'maisa merkava. Teach me something about the Maisa HaMerkava. Maisa Merkava refers to a story in Sefer Yechezkel with the chariots and angels and perhaps Mashiach, and it's a very, very esoteric, very, very difficult story to comprehend. And we're not really supposed to engage, and we're not supposed to delve into these matters. But they're traveling, they're on the road, and he says to his Rebbe, Shneli Perik Echad Ma'aser, teach me something about the Ma'aser Merkava. Amar lo, Rebbe says to Talmud, Yochanan ben Zakkai says to Elazar ben Aruch, Lo kach sheniti lechem, haven't I already taught you this? Right? You're not supposed to even teach one-on-one Ma'aser Merkava. Ma'aser Merkava is a serious thing. It's too esoteric. It's too far out. It's too difficult to understand. We're not going to delve into it. Right? You're not allowed to go one-on-one and to teach it unless that student was what? Was a scholar, was a chacham mevin midaito, was a really intelligent, wise person who could really understand the issues, come mevin midaito, understand it on his own. Amar lo, Elazar ben Aruch says back to his Rabbi, he says, Rabbi, Tarsheni lomar lefanecha davar echad shlematani. Right? He says, allow me to tell me something that you've already taught us. Amalo emar. So Rabbi Yochanan says back to him, what do you want? Tell me what do you want to teach me? Miyad yorad Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai melech hamor. All of a sudden, right? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says, speak. And immediately Yochanan ben Zakkai jumps off. He descends from the donkey. Then why? Because Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch is about to teach him something. Then he's atef. He wraps himself in his maybe in his talis or maybe just in his clothing. The yashav ala even tachas hazayis, and he sits on this stone, probably like a rock, under an olive tree. Amar lo, Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch says to him, Rabbi, right? He's about to learn Torah from Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch. He says, Rabbi, why did you jump down? I'm just going to say it's our Torah, right? Why did you jump off of this chamor? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says, maybe you're going to teach me something about Ma'aser Merkava. Ushchina imanu, and the Shechina is going to be with us. Umalachi hasharis melavin utanu, and then all of a sudden the angels, the malachi hasharis, right, that come to our home, that we greet, Shalom Aleichem Malachi Hasharis, right? That's the first paragraph of Shalom Aleichem. Maybe the Malachi Hasharis are going to come and they're going to accompany us on our walk. Va'ani erkav chamor, and I'm going to be on a donkey. The Shechina is going to be here. The Malachim are going to be here. They're going to be here when we're learning. Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. I should be sitting on the donkey. Patach Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch b'Ma'aser Merkava v'darash. All of a sudden, Elazar ben Aruch starts teaching about the Ma'aser Merkava, explains different secrets, different yisodos there. And fire comes down from the shamayim. And it surrounds all the trees. The fire surrounds all the trees in the field. Paschu kulan v'amru shira. All of a sudden, the trees start singing Shira. They start singing a song. And they say, what song? Ma Shira. Amr, the Gemara asks, Haluas Hashem bina aretz taninim v'chol ta'omos. Right? That all the taninim, we learned that was last week or 2 weeks ago. The big sea giants, right? The sea, the serpents, and all the depths, all the waters, everything, all of nature is going to start singing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Eitz pri v'chol arazim luka. Nana malach mina eish v'amar. All of a sudden, an angel came amidst the fire. Right, Malach min ha'esh, from the fire, and said, Hein Ma'aser Merkava. This is, you're right. This is Ma'aser Merkava. You're explaining it perfectly, correctly. Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai gets up, un shako arosho. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is so proud of his talmud. He kisses him on his head. V'amar Baruch Hashem Lokei Yisrael Shenasan Ben Avram Avinu. Thank God, Baruch Hashem, thank God that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has blessed the children of Avraham, right, the descendants of Avraham, with a person such as you, such as my Talmud Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch, Sheyodei lahavin v'lachkor v'lijosh b'maisem recover, who knows how to lahavin, to understand, lachkor, to really delve into, v'lijosh, and to explain and to expound on the story of the of Maisa HaMerkava. So you see, he understands. He's the best Talmud of them. He's the best Talmud from the Mishnah. Then we have this amazing story that he understands the deepest secrets of the world, the deepest secrets of Kabbalah and mysticism and everything. And where is he? Where is he? In Chazal. And lest we think that he was just, he was too smart. Sometimes you have a teacher, sometimes you have a person who's too holy. They're too saintly. They don't understand people. The Medrash in Tehillim quotes Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch. The Medrash says, Kigon Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch. What is a person what does it mean? Everyone needs their advice. Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch shuhaya yoetz esus. He was the yoetz of the world. He was the people. He would give eitzah. It's interesting. We just lost Rav David Feinstein. And Rav David, he was the posek in America, and his father, Rav Moshe, was just world-renowned. He was the posek for America, but he was probably also the posek of the world. Rav Moshe Feinstein was, when he was alive, there were people in Eretz Yisrael of a similar caliber to him, but he was widely accepted as the posek of the world, definitely from, let's say, the early 50s at least, through to his death in 1986. And he was very, very close with Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, and they died maybe 2 weeks apart, both in 1986. I think Rav Yaakov was about 5 or 6 years older than him. Rav Moshe was called a posek hador, and Rabbi Yaakov was called the Yoetz Hador. He gave advice. He understood people very, very well, and people would seek him out. So here, Elazar ben Aruch was also, he understood people. That's why I'm bringing this source. Yoetz eitzos umiskaimos umatzichos. And when he would give advice, it would happen. Meaning, what he said would happen. Umatzichos, and the advice he would give, people were matzliach with that. Were matzliach with him, with what he told them to do. Amr lo, they said to him, Navi ata, Elazar ben Aruch, you're a Navi. He answered, Amr lehen, lo Navi anochi, I'm not a Navi. Velo ben Navi anochi, I'm not the son of a Navi. Elakach mikublani me rabosa. This is what I've learned from my Rabbeim. Shekol eitza shi l'shem shamayim. When a person gives advice, that's l'shem shamayim. There's no agenda, there's no ulterior motive. When a person is doing it just for the other person, and that's very hard, right? But when a person's a real Baal Eitzah, they're thinking about that other person. Shekol Eitzah shi l'shem shamayim, so for his kaim, it's going to turn out okay, and it's going to happen. But the mystery is still there, right? So now we brought this source because he's a real person. He's able to talk to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and create fires and angels and all these things about Meiser Merkava, but he's also understands that having a good heart and giving people one-on-one advice is also he also excelled in that area. So that's our question. Our question is, what happened to this man? Why did he disappear from the face of Jewish learning and traditional Jewish sources? Where did he go? And next week we will see what happened, potentially what happened to him. Have a great, great week.